Once again, the Catholic Church in the United States is making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Shocking revelations of sexual abuse involving a prominent prelate, followed up by the recent release of a Pennsylvania grand jury report on sexual abuse by clergy, enabled by a systematic cover-up by bishops and other church authorities, have again cast a dark cloud of suspicion over the leadership in the Catholic Church. Those worst hit by these horrific accounts are the thousands of survivors who for decades were ignored or hindered in their pursuit of justice and healing. Also affected have been many faithful lay Catholics who, through no fault of their own, find themselves once again facing a daily barrage of media headlines exposing ugly truths about crimes and sins committed against humanity by religious leaders who had dedicated themselves to the mission of proclaiming the gospel of Jesus. Leading up to these revelations has been the developing disconnect between the teachings of Pope Francis and the right-shifting political bias of United States bishops, priests, and laity who place excessive attention on the criminalization of abortion to the detriment of other pro-life issues such as the death penalty, gun violence, health care, and the welfare of refugees and asylum seekers. My Twitter friends believe this myopic approach to the 2016 election played a major role in the creation of a government mired in misogyny, racism, neglect of the poor and marginalized, and sins against the environment. Some friends in some parts of the country state that clergy actively pressure parishioners to vote for certain candidates under the threat of mortal sin. These sex abuse revelations, coupled with the selective deafness applied to the teachings of the Holy Father and the Church here in the United States, have shaken the souls of the faithful to their core. Where many once experienced their faith as a comforting vision of light, mercy, and salvation, find it blurred by a cloud of darkness, hypocrisy, and deceit. Trust is shattered, making it difficult for Catholics to welcome the word of truth as it is proclaimed by those who may have conspired in the sin or the cover-up. Where these revelations are most destructive for the people of God is in the area of faith. Faith, the first of the theological virtues, is the path by which we travel to the Lord. Most of us have stories to tell of how we came to faith. We can also tell of the many times in our lives when that faith was tested. Let me share my reflections on this gift of faith as played out in my own life, and how I have managed to avoid losing heart in times of crisis. As I have just said, faith is a gift. St. Paul says in his letter to the Ephesians, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from you, it is the gift of God." How it happens that this gift appears to flourish in some people, but fails to do so in others, is a great mystery to me. Why some children fall away from the church even though they were raised by devout parents who did everything right, while people raised in a faithless household found their way into the faith apparently on their own, is far beyond my understanding. My parents were faithful Catholics. We attended Sunday Mass as a family, said the Rosary every night, prayed at meals, and often discussed religion at the table. Two of my brothers attended the local minor seminary, though neither persevered. Now, 60-plus years later, I can only say that they all live the faith differently now, and not necessarily at the same level of intensity. Faith took hold of me at a very young age. I clearly remember hearing the story of Jesus and the crucifixion at age 6 in the first grade. I was greatly impressed by the love of Jesus, who gave all of himself by coming to earth, enduring great suffering and a miserable death in order to save me and others. My moment of grace was realizing that there was nothing more important for me than to respond to this act of love by dedicating my own life to becoming a saint. In time, I would learn that sanctity involves a lifelong journey, and that it cannot be achieved in a moment simply by waking up to the faith. Still, as a child, I viewed the day of my first Holy Communion as the best day of my life. My precocious piety, which may have been mixed with a naive pharisaical hubris, did not make me popular among the other children. Even though attending a Catholic school, I was teased a lot for my unusual goody-goody religious fervor. It was at this time that the roots of my religious vocation were being formed. I found myself more attracted to the life of the sisters at the school than I was to the life of the priests in the rectory. Although I was blessed to be taught by sisters that I liked in my first and second grades, I was not so impressed by sisters who taught me in my later years. One sister was so mentally and emotionally abusive to me that to this day I go out of my way to avoid crossing paths with her. My experiences led me to view priests and religious as fallible human beings, and I was loath to place any of them on a pedestal. In my mind, my life in the sacramental church was separate from the foibles that I observed in the priests and sisters whom I did not like. This attitude, arising from my earliest days, helped me to separate the human from the divine in my life of faith in the church up to this day. My faith journey through dark times has taught me to not let their problems become my problems. I am not willing to give up the sacraments, especially the Eucharist, and all the rich spiritual treasures of the Church just because of bad bishops, priests, religious, and lay people. St. Paul said it best about the faith. We hold this treasure in earthen vessels, that the surpassing power may be of God and not from us. We guard our spiritual health in the same way, if not more so, as we guard our physical health. There are many bad doctors, nurses, and healthcare professionals. Many have become targets of malpractice lawsuits. Nevertheless, the truth surrounding sound healthcare does not change. Healthy eating, exercise, and stress management, these are the doctrines of sensible self-health care. We can change doctors, but we do not give up taking care of ourselves because there are bad healthcare professionals alive and well in the world. The same applies to our spiritual health. The efficacy of the sacraments does not depend upon the worthiness of the one who administers them. However odious the experience may be, we still benefit from the sacraments regardless of how badly they are celebrated or how sinful is the presiding bishop or priest. Apparently, Jesus did not effectively screen his apostles before choosing them. Judas Iscariot betrayed Jesus and then committed suicide in despair. St. Peter, though repentant later, cowardly denied his connection to Jesus at the most critical moment. And things do not always fare well in the earliest Christian communities. In the 5th chapter of his first letter to the Corinthians, St. Paul confronts a sexual scandal involving incest, which was dividing the Christians at Corinth. Church leadership was particularly corrupt in later centuries when the Medicis and the Borgias nearly owned the papacy. There were also the horrific atrocities of the Inquisition that still haunt the Church to this day. These dark stains on the life of the Church throughout history show the effects of original sin on our fallen human nature, which was originally created in the image and likeness of God. We must always remember that we have at our disposal the light and power of the Holy Spirit, with whom we were sealed at our confirmation. When in darkness and distress, we should not hesitate to call upon the Holy Spirit for light and healing. I am confident that when we do so in faith, light will shine in our darkness, and we will be empowered to persevere and grow stronger in the faith. Peace be with you.